Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Scott Busby. I'm the Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary from the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. Losar Tashi Delek. I'm honored to be with you today to celebrate Losar. A very happy new year to all of you. First off, Secretary Blinken would like to share his good wishes with the group.
On behalf of the United States, it's my pleasure to offer my warmest wishes to all those in the Himalayan region and around the world who are celebrating Losar. Tibet's cultural legacy has thrived for more than 2,000 years, and the Biden administration is committed to preserving, protecting, and honoring this linguistic, religious, and cultural heritage. Your rich traditions live on in those who celebrate today, not only in Tibet, but around the world. Just as they have for centuries, your traditions continue to symbolize notions of love, compassion, justice, forgiveness, tolerance, and peace. We look forward to celebrating these traditions with you during Losar and on many other occasions for years to come. Thank you.
And now a video from our Tibetan friends on Losar with greetings from Tibetans across America.
Losar. This year, February 12th, marks the first day of the year 2148 in the Tibetan lunar calendar. Losar means New Year, and Tibetans celebrate with a variety of different cultural, religious festivities, and also a lot of merrymaking. Every Tibetan family will have a Losar altar, which will include fruits of our nomadic and farming traditions, and a generous, beautiful altar represents the increasing virtues of auspiciousness, and every family will try to make their altar beautiful and decorative. And in this tradition, we greet each other by saying Tashi Delek, which means good health and good fortune. But on a deeper level, the Dalai Lama reminds us it means may you have a meaningful life, a life that has joy in benefiting others and not harming them. Today, on this special Losar virtual celebration, we have Tibetan Americans from across the United States offering you their Tibetan New Year greetings.
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Tibetan Association of Ithaca, upstate New York.
Tibetan Association here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Tibetan Association of Philadelphia.
New York down, New Jersey.
Ringetangma pöge losa la tashtele.
Namlo tatsela tashi dele.
Losa tashi dele.
Losa tashi dele.
Tamlingla de gi chongma sho. Kiki soso pöge tashi dele kutsuso.
Losa tashi dele.
Tashi Delay and Happy Losar.
Thank you, Dr. PMC. Anazosian February Chidun Sobe and Pimi Yong Subshuji and Purchina News Ube Puripin Yonga and a Polo Nidon Yat Shishike, Chana Lug, Namusazilla, Ningtabin Station.
On behalf of all the Tibetans settled in this area, I would like to wish you all a very happy, healthy, and harmonious Lunar Tibetan New Year.
东尼娘吉从登记北南，妻子甚至刚进当中，小拿把忙等着讲错了，说完的说人顿很着笑，张木冷个罗萨瓦拉，阿里装忙你当，或是悉尼啦，印第安人阿里波尔金的作品差些的，给我大概根本上只能呢，他们这些的历史。
这些的嘞，他哩这个勒萨切瓦吉尼莫拉，三年瓦邦，比如今天做班呢。
Happy Losar. My name is Tenzin Kansel. I am the president of Tibetan Association of Philadelphia.
I, on behalf of Tibetan Association of Colorado, wish you all a very warm and happy Tibetan New Year.
That was wonderful. Finally, we would like to welcome Chairman Richard Gere of the International Campaign for Tibet, who would like to wish all of us a Happy New Year. Chairman Gere.
Hello, everybody there at the State Department and Secretary Blinken. Very happy to know that you are joining us at some point today. This is a very special day in the life of Tibetans. Losar, their New Year's, is much more than just a kind of a revel celebration. It's one of reaffirmation of a deep commitment, a Buddhist commitment, but a human commitment to wisdom and compassion. And this deep sense that we're all in this together, not just from a surface point of view, but deep inside of our hearts. We are all in this together. And I've known my Tibetan brothers and sisters for 40 years now all over the world. And I was deeply proud when Tibetans started to come to the U.S. The tragedy of losing their own country, starting with the invasion of 1950 by the Chinese, and the diaspora that's gone all over the world. The Tibetan community has become very strong here in the U.S. with tens of thousands of Tibetans here who have brought the idealism, I think, that maybe the U.S. started with. And I've said this before, but one of my most moving moments as a U.S. citizen was to be in the rotunda, this magical place in Congress, kind of our Sistine Chapel, where His Holiness the Dalai Lama received the Congressional Gold Medal and received it from President Bush, but all the Republicans were there, the Democrats were all there, the current speaker was there. Last year's leader of the Senate was also there. And everyone spoke beautifully on both sides of the aisle. And there was a sense that in this moment, the higher ideals were embraced by everyone. Labels weren't relevant anymore. Speaking of the higher drives, ambitions, motivations of human beings for wisdom and compassion. And literally that sense that no one should be left behind, that we are here to take care of each other. When His Holiness spoke, I think everyone was in tears. And again, this feeling that this is what America is supposed to be. In that moment, the Dalai Lama was the first among Americans. And I think we also maybe reclaimed our ideals. My images of that moment where everyone was their best selves, of course, it's in juxtaposition to what we've been seeing replayed during the insurrection of January 6th. But I think in terms of that, we can celebrate that we do have these extraordinary Tibetans here who've brought their incredible culture to us. And they're now part of us. And we can embrace that, we can celebrate that, and we can be true to our commitments, both legal and moral, to help Tibetans all over the world, especially inside Tibet. More to be said about that later. But thank you very much for celebrating this moment of Losar New Year's for our Tibetan brothers and sisters. Bye-bye.
Thanks to everyone for those wonderful messages. While I wish we all could be in one room to honor this occasion, as we have in the past, this virtual celebration is no less meaningful. We are here to celebrate a beautiful culture, and there is no better way to do that than to do it with all of you together. I'd like to recognize a number of State Department officials who are with us today in celebration of Losar. First, Senior Bureau Official Nancy Jackson and Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Richard Albright from the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. Second, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Human Rights, Labor, and Democracy, Kara McDonald. Third, Deputy Assistant Secretary for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, Jonathan Fritz. Fourth, Deputy Assistant Secretary for South and Central Asian Affairs, Laura Stone. And last, Senior Official for the Office of International Religious Freedom, Dan Nadell. Now it is my honor to introduce Senior Official for Civilian Security, Democracy, and Human Rights, Lisa Peterson, to offer us some remarks. Lisa?
It's my pleasure to speak to you on this joyous occasion, and on behalf of the U.S. Department of State, wish a Happy New Year to those celebrating here in the United States and around the world. Losar Tashi Delek. I'd like to emphasize the continuing U.S. commitment to the people of Tibet. The United States stands with them all and will continue to work with Tibetans to honor their unique identity, cultural practices, language, and religious traditions. We celebrate this start of a new year at a time of great adversity and change around the world. During this pandemic, many have found comfort in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings regarding kindness, patience, and reverence for life. I'd also like to recognize and celebrate the many contributions of Tibetan Americans, including to the pandemic response. A U.S. Public Health Service officer, from whom we'll hear later on, is one of the many young Tibetan American leaders making their mark upon the world. The United States has long supported young Tibetans as they grow into leadership roles. We are particularly proud of our Tibetan Scholarship Program, which has many illustrious alumni, including Central Tibetan Administration, Sikyang Lobsang Sangye. We believe Tibetans must have a voice in their own future, and investing in leaders early is one part of ensuring this happens. The United States remains committed to improving respect for the human rights, including religious freedom, of Tibetans. We will continue to work with our partners and allies to press the People's Republic of China to grant meaningful autonomy to Tibetans, respect their human rights, and preserve Tibet's environment, as well as its rich historical, cultural, and religious traditions. We will not tolerate the Chinese government's relentless assault on the dignity and human rights of Tibetans and members of other minority groups. The United States stands with Tibetans, including the many who have been oppressed and imprisoned for the peaceful exercise of their human rights. Sorry about that. Now, thank you all for joining today's celebration. It's now my honor and privilege to invite remarks from the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Ngorub Tsering.
Thank you, Lisa Peterson. First and foremost, I'd like to sincerely thank the State Department for organizing this year's virtual Losar event. On behalf of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibet Administration, I would like to offer my greetings and prayers to everyone, and especially to Secretary Anthony Blinken, Lisa Peterson, and all the bureau chiefs of the State Department, officials of the State Department, and the distinguished guest. In Tibetan language, Lo means year and Sar means new, so it's a new year. Traditionally, it is celebrated for 3 days to 15 days with lots of festivities and excitement. The occasion is also an important time to set the right motivation for the coming year while rejoicing at the positive deeds of the year just passed by. Last February, we were at the State Department to attend an in-person Losar event. I can't believe it is yet another Losar now. Time flies like anything. I'm grateful to successive US administration for keeping up with the tradition of hosting Losar each year. This, I believe, is the 7th event, and I have been fortunate to attend 4 of them. Thank you for honoring this important cultural tradition of Tibet. It means a lot for the Tibetan people. 2020 was undoubtedly one of the most memorable years in recent history because of the Wuhan originated COVID-19 pandemic. Millions of people lost their lives and livelihoods. The world economy has been battered. The toll from the pandemic is still continuing unabated. The immense suffering could have easily averted had the Chinese Communist Party's leadership shown more responsibility and transparency. I'm sure the world will not forget this easily. Apart from the tragedy and sufferings, 2020 was also a historic year for Tibet. The passage of Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2020 has been the most uplifting and inspiring for the Tibetans and Tibet supporters all over the globe. This act passed because of the leadership and support of so many, including many of you who are here today. This new legislation made it an official US policy that the succession of Tibetan Buddhist leaders, including the succession of Dalai Lama, be left solely to the Tibetan Buddhists to decide without interference from the Chinese government. This is one of many important provisions that were enacted into law by TPSA. The Chinese Communist Party would very much like to see the demise of His Holiness' legacy, but the US Congress sent a resounding message that they will not remain idle in the face of historic injustice. I look forward to seeing the effects of TPSA in the near future. I feel confident that Tibetans are much better off with this new historic legislation. Last year, I concluded my Losar remarks by calling for the appointment of special coordinator, and that request was granted, albeit after a long wait. Though our time with the former special coordinator, Assistant Secretary Robert Destro, was very short, he and his team made the most of his tenure and will be fondly remembered for helping the CTA president Dr. Lobsang Sangye entered the State Department for the first time. It was a huge moment for Tibet. We hope it will continue. Also, the Office of Tibet had the privilege of arranging the first ever virtual trip to Dharamsala for the special coordinator and his team, including an audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Just recently, the State Department issued a strong statement in support of Tibet, and also Secretary Blinken spoke directly to the Chinese official a couple of days ago that US will continue to stand up for human rights in Tibet, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong. I cannot thank the new administration enough. Although Losar is an occasion for celebration and jubilation, I cannot help but think of our brothers and sisters who continue to suffer in Tibet. Their situation continues to be dire and needs our help more than ever. The so-called ethnic unity, bilingual policy, Sinicization of Tibetan Buddhism, forced labor, etc., introduced by the CCP, one after another, even during the pandemic, aimed at nothing but total assimilation and elimination of Tibetan identity. This is not a short-term crisis. It has been happening for the last 7 decades. But CCP will not succeed, as Tibetans will not let them succeed. In 2018, I mentioned during the Losar event that it has started off with Tibet, but can end with you, meaning the rest of the world. And precisely, sure enough, the people of Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and Southern Mongolia have joined the pack of victims now. CCP is also threatening India and Taiwan, clearly proving that it is a threat to the world freedom and democracy. On a separate note, I would like to inform you that Tibetan population in the United States is roughly around 25,000, and more than 60% of Tibetans are in the frontline professions, serving as nurses, doctors, and health workers. Our people are very proud to be among the heroes who risked their lives serving others during the pandemic. In addition, several Tibetan associations in North America collected donations and contributed to COVID-related NGOs, while others offered hot lunches to first responders, and some made even face masks in hundreds and distributed them freely to the needy. We were truly grateful to be of some help during the pandemic to this great nation, which welcomed us so kindly. To conclude, I would like to thank the folks in DRL and Office of International Religious Freedom, and particularly Principal Deputy Secretary Scott Busby and Stephanie for putting this event together and giving me an opportunity to speak. I also like to thank ICT for their help in coordinating this event. Let me finish with these prayers. May His Holiness live long and enjoy a sound health. May God bless United States of America. Thank you. Tukchi che. Tashidele.
Thank you, Representative Sering, for those very, very meaningful remarks. Thank you, Representative Sering, for those very, very meaningful remarks. I now would like to welcome Lieutenant Commander Tenzin Kansel, who has served on the front lines of the pandemic over the last year as a healthcare worker with the U.S. Public Health Service. Please, Lieutenant Commander, you have the floor.
Losar Deshtale, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today to celebrate the first day of Losar with you all. And thank you for having me here just to share my personal journey thus far as a Tibetan American. Losar has always been my favorite time of the year, and I always associate it with happiness. As a Tibetan refugee in India, I recall the happiness I felt, associated with the new clothes I could finally wear on the first day of Losar, or eating the fresh desi made by my amala, or opening the gifts that our bala had sent us from the United States. And like many other Tibetan Americans my age, There was a period of our childhood growing up in the Tibetan refugee communities with one of our parents here in the US. It was my Bala who was named one of the 1,000 Tibetans selected to immigrate to the USA due to the 1990 Immigration Act. Bala stresses how hard the time away from family was tough and stressful, but it was all worth it to provide a future to his 5 children here now. He used to tell us a story of how he arrived to Minnesota on the cold night of March 10th, and immediately he started working as many jobs as he could fit into a 24-hour day to provide for us back in India and to bring us here with him. This left my Amala with 4 kids all under the age of 10 to care for us until we were finally all reunited in 1998 on that exact same day in March. I was only 7 years old, but I'll never forget seeing America for the first time. And I specifically remember that I left my jacket on the plane. So I really saw the snow and felt the snow in Minnesota on March. The lights and the tall buildings seemed like something out of a dream. I didn't fully know then how much my life would change with this one move, but I knew that I finally had a country to call home after living as a refugee my life. As a Tibetan American, I was very fortunate to grow up with a blend of the Tibetan and American cultural education. In particular, I benefited greatly from the teachings of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, about the importance of giving back and how true happiness comes from compassion. The happiness of those new clothes on Losar was great, but it was momentary and it went away. But the happiness that you gain from helping others around you truly stay with you forever. One memory that will always make my heart smile is of a 7-year-old girl who I had met on a medical trip I helped organize in India. She was carried to her clinic by her grandmother because she had lost her ability to walk. We found that she had osteomyelitis of her femur, which is a bone infection of her leg. And through the coordination with physicians here in the US and with local and international nonprofit organizations, we were able to provide her with appropriate antibiotics and surgery. She was able to walk again. It's these type of experiences throughout my life that have reinforced the teaching of His Holiness to always serve others around us. It's these values instilled in me as a Tibetan American is the reasons why I chose to commission with the US Public Health Service. We are one of the 8 uniformed services of the United States of America. We are America's health responders with the mission to protect, promote, and advance the health and safety of our nation. Through PHS, I've had the privilege to provide care to Americans who need it the most. For example, setting up field medical stations for those displaced during the hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria, and now deploying to COVID-19 hotspots during this pandemic. It has only fueled my passion to keep serving. And I definitely would not be where I am today without the support of the communities throughout my life. It truly takes a village, a strong and supportive village. The extended family and neighbors who lent a hand to my Amala with the kids, and the group of teachers at Orchard Lane Elementary School who helped transition me from an English learner classes to high-performing classes in the first 3 years. And the Minnesota Tibetan community here in Minnesota who had volunteered to keep our Tibetan culture, language, and traditions alive. The community leaders like the late Gay Wangala, who had spent all of his free time encouraging us young Tibetan students to pursue higher education. I remember that he even attended my high school graduation speech, and he was so proud of me, like he was my own dad. And the small community of Tibetan members who actually work at the Walter Reed Medical Center and tailored this uniform for me as they have for all the other uniform services. These communities have really shaped me to become the person I am today. And I hope we keep building communities of support for the next generation of Tibetans to come. The success of the community is truly dependent on the success of the individuals within that community. And as the next generation of Tibetan Americans, I see us becoming experts in our own fields and serving in our own capacities to make our country and the world a better place to live for everyone. We have these opportunities available to us now, and it's our turn to give back. Thank you, America, for making it possible for someone like me who was born as a Tibetan refugee in India with really no place to call home. And now I'm able to find my identity as a proud Tibetan American. On behalf of all the Tibetan Americans, I want to offer this kata and our sincere gratitude and thank you to the United States government, who has, through successive administrations, continued support of the Tibetan people inside and outside of Tibet. Tujuche and happy Losar to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Commander. Now we will watch a performance of Drekar by Sering Bawa, in which he will recite auspicious verses for the new year.
My name
Hello, Taran Namla Tewe Karma Sanga Chiki Temdel Nam Karsegi Tawala Chawiki Kurkan Pupa Chiki Temdel Tara Sala Tewe Nimato wa Chiki Temdel Sashi Pema Tapkela Mendoki Chara Papa Chiki Temdel La Charchu Tuzu Papa Chiki Temdel Lochu Tato Geba Chiki Temdel La Chura Chembo Tarsi Geba Chiki Temdel La Dukindu Zuma Namso Ubanto wa Chiki Temdel La Mineta Chune Meba Chiki Temdel Neta Neyam Mebe Temdel Mata Muge Mebe Temdel La Lera Tupsi Norge Kanwe Temdel Pangsu Tupsi Tergi Kanwe Temdel Tara Tupsi Tai Kanwe Temdel La Mineta Chune Meba Chiki Temdel Seta Sewu Mepe Temdel Neta Neyam Mepe Temdel Mata Muge Mepe Temdel La Mima Namso Chamdu Da Toksa Chikdo Diwa Chiki Temdel Pama Putu Namso Tiki Pusum Soba Yung Wa Chiki Temdel Chungchiba Namso Riksepe Wa Chiki Temdel La Tsawe Lama Kong Kuse Shape Yurin Kejar Teje Shegon Tata Lungi Tuba Chiki Temdel Pemi Shije Yinyamdo Zomne Losa Taruru Zombe Temdel La Chara Yodo Shubela
Now, I would like to introduce two outstanding Tibetan American youth. The first is Tenzin Kansel, a recent graduate from Bucknell University with a double major in East Asian Studies and Sociology, and a member of the Yakbo Collective, a New York-based organization that promotes Tibetan art. Second, we have Tenzin Kansel, who came to America at the age of 9, learned Tibetan singing at Tibetan Sunday School in New York City, and is a recent graduate with a master's degree in applied health informatics from Stony Brook University. They will now perform a Losar celebration song.
is Tenzin Kansel,
My name is Tenzin Kansel.
and on this auspicious day, we'd like to wish you all
Losar Tishdele. Today we'll be presenting a song called Kangje Pöge Losar,
which is about celebrating the Tibetan New Year with family, friends, and loved ones.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings our program to an end. I would like to thank all of our speakers, performers, guests, and everyone watching at home. It was wonderful to hear from you and to experience a small taste of the richness of Tibetan culture. Before we leave, I would like to underscore Senior Official Peterson's earlier remarks. The United States remains firmly committed to Tibet and to the Tibetan people. Happy New Year, Losar Tashi Delek. I look forward to celebrating again with all of you next year. That concludes our show.